Hey everyone, this is Jeremy Schiefling from Khan Academy. Thanks so much for joining us in a long-running series of Remote Learning 101. It's gone on a little longer than we expected at the beginning back in March, but we're happy to serve you with whatever's most of interest. What we've heard from a lot of teachers across the country is that, yeah, technology is hard and academics are hard right now, but motivation and engagement, sparking that fundamental curiosity and passion for learning is really the toughest thing to summon when everyone's feeling a little down. And so into that void has stepped this amazing Khan Academy ambassador, Laura Lagasse, who is an incredible sixth grade teacher in Southern California, and who even before this crisis started, had been motivating her students with a very special part of Khan Academy that was built in collaboration with Pixar, which is called Pixar in a Box. Basically an online curriculum that's not about calculus or algebra or AP US history, but about how do you tell really amazing stories using both human ingenuity and technology. And so I would love for you to learn from Laura about her experience and her recommendations. And I want to give you a little bit of an extra bonus today. In the spirit of Pixar and innovation, we're going to try a new way of asking questions for these webinars. So instead of just asking questions in the question box and then waiting to see if your question will be answered, we're actually going to use a new tool, which you can find at khan.co/PixarCon. I will chat that into the chat area right now. And what you will find when you get there is a list of questions coming in from teachers across the country that you can not only add to, but you can also upvote. So if you see a question that you're really excited about, just go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and those will rise to the top, and those are the ones that will turn to Laura first to make sure they get priority answers. So that being said, Laura, we're so excited to have you here today. Thank you again for sharing your expertise in the midst of everything else going on. Just take a moment to tell us about your own educational adventure and how you got to this moment.
Well, I'm a teacher here in Southern California. I've been teaching about 20 years now, and I teach at in Victor Elementary School District at a school called Galileo Academy, and I've been there teaching. I taught third grade there, and sixth grade is what I'm currently teaching right now.
That's awesome. And tell us how things are going. Like, how is the remote learning going for you? What are you learning along the way?
Well, I've become much more technological. We've been really doing a lot of Zoom classes, and it's been really great. I'm able to see the kids still, and the kids are able to see me, and I'm still able to give them a lot of different lessons. Today, we even took a virtual tour of the Great Wall of China, so it was pretty neat. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, clearly I can tell that you're really focused on that engagement and motivation piece as well as the technology piece. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about Pixar in a Box? Like, what is it and why did you use it in your classroom in the first place?
Well, one of the reasons why I started using it, I actually started out as an elective. We were able to choose, each one of us were able to choose an elective, something that we really enjoyed doing, and that's something that I really enjoyed doing. I really think that Pixar is in the box is the art of storytelling by storytellers, which is pretty fantastic. And so the last couple of years, I thought, this is such a fantastic, just these lessons are just amazing that I'm going to actually use them in my writing block rather than just using them as an elective. And the kids absolutely enjoy it. They really have blossomed as writers, and they really enjoy the process too.
That's awesome. And so tell us how you typically use it with your students. Like, how do you roll it out? How do you get them excited about it?
Well, we usually do lessons per day, but say, for example, the very first lesson. So we'll go to the art of storytelling. And in the art of storytelling, it's just so fantastic. All of those different lessons are just all about the storytelling. So the first thing that I like to do is I like to show a Pixar short. What's amazing is Pixar has so many fantastic shorts, and they are short, and it's so great for the kids to be able to tell back the story, and they'll be able to use those to help tell their stories. So we start with, we are storytellers. I don't think that the kids realize what great storytellers they truly are. They just don't know how to tell that story, or and they learn how to do it in a Pixar way. So first they learn what amazing storytellers they are. In the first lesson, it talks about the characters and the unique perspective of characters, and what we do is it's so relatable to the kids, because once we watch the videos, because that's another really important piece, there's always a video on there, and Pixar has allowed us to see a lot of the different stories that come from people who actually work at Pixar, that they are able to share their stories about how they became storytellers. So then what it asks the student to do is then it'll ask the student to self-reflect. But what's great is most of these kids have already seen these Pixar movies, so they're going to say, they'll ask you, pick your three favorite. Okay, now let's apply what we've learned. So if there are, like, for example, in the first activity, it's about, the emotions, and it's about really starting to try to express a memory that they have. So they'll take it and they'll put it in the same concept as that memory is a story that I can expand on. So that's what it asks the kids to actually draw on their own experiences to be able to tell those stories, which they soon find out that they are now storytellers. And then we work into just the structure of the story, or I love the what if activities. In one of them, the what if this happened or that happened. And what's fantastic is you can take, say, The Incredibles, and then I'll ask the kids, well, who asked what if? What is that what if they asked? And they'll be able to tell me exactly, what if there were superheroes that couldn't be superheroes anymore? Well, so there's your story, and that's how you can start it. And then after that, we'll work into character. The kids will start creating their characters, which is really fantastic, because once they really get their character developed, because we spend a lot of time on developing that one character. So once they get the character developed using the internal and external characteristics, they have to draw the character. They have to tell me, who is this? What do they have a lisp? Do they limp? And so they have to really define their characters really well. And so once they can define that character, they can then put the character into a world. So then we talk about setting. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll talk about what kind of world do you want to act or to live in. And I love that one piece where it talks about the wants versus needs, because it's an amazing way to start the story. What does your character want? And what do they need to do to be able to go and get what they want? And then after we get our character, we want to know, what's happening to the character, what are their stakes, those kinds of things. Then we start looking into the story structure, which is where the kids really start to develop their story itself. The one thing that's absolutely amazing is this story spine. This story spine is just something that gets their juices really flowing. The once upon a time, every day, until one day, and then because of that, until finally. And it's a great way to start the story. Sometimes what we'll do in class is I'll put up the story spine and I say, okay, kids, tell me once upon a time, and we'll do it in a group, and then the kids will tell me once upon and then I said, okay, now every day, what did they do? And then somebody will tell me this, that, or the other thing. And then we'll have a class story that we can repeat. And we just have a really good time with that because sometimes they turn out pretty funny.
And you could
So
even do that over Zoom these days, have that sort of like
exactly.
class-wide story building.
And then after we work through the story spine, I love that the spine then turns into three different acts. So then we have Act One, and then we have the three. There's Act One, beginning, middle, and end. Act One is the once upon a time, every day until one day. So then we work through our Act One, and then we go on to Act Two, which is the because of, and we've worked through that, and they get their middle meat part of the story. And then finally, we'll go on to Act Three, and that's until finally, and then ever since then. And then they have a story, which is really fantastic. And then after that, what we do is then we'll start storyboarding our story. So we'll work through that, and they can see what their story is going to look like. And then once they have their story, we were talking a little bit earlier about, then they really get excited about writing their story into a script. So what we then do is we go to, there's an extension in Chrome that is Yumi Script, and the kids can download this into their Chromebooks and they can actually write a script. So they end up having a complete story, full script. And sometimes we talk about we're doing this and we're going to go from beginning script to screen. And so sometimes if we end up being able to have a little bit more time, we can maybe record it or do a live action, or sometimes they can do claymation and do a stop motion. And so they get a complete story. But the other wonderful thing about this, we've been talking about narrative for a while here. This also I have used in expository, which has been really great. We will study something like the ancient cultures. And so what we'll do is I will give them a prompt and tell them, okay, now you are the character in this ancient culture. So now you can then, they have to do the research on their ancient culture. They have to find out everything there is to know about that culture because they have to be able to write the setting for that. And then they can have an adventure. In the meantime, they're also learning how to write an expository to be able to show what an ancient culture, or even scientists, they can become scientists too.
That's awesome. Well, Jill,
Yeah.
I have to tell you, like, I am super impressed because not only is everything you shared the kind of stuff that I think any student would love to work on during normal times, it's especially the kind of material that a student could work on even in these very strange times, whether it's
Yeah.
with the class over Zoom or on their own through assignments.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, I know there are a ton of questions coming in. I do want to remind folks that if you want to ask those questions, it's khan.co/PixarCon. And if you don't mind, Laura, I'd love to just start at the top with some of the top questions coming in. Okay, so I think this is kind of the elephant in the room at this point, which is Laura's a sixth grade teacher, but do you have any recommendations as far as like, would this work for younger elementary? Would you recommend it all the way up to high school? Like, who is this really for?
Well, I'm actually going to be, next year, I'm going to be doing third grade, and I am going to use it in my third grade class. I think this can be used for all ages. If you're in kindergarten and first grade, you can do it as a directed instruction and do it a talk through in kindergarten and first grade and even second grade. Once you get to third grade, I think this is really something that they can absolutely do as well. When you reach the sixth grade, it's just going to be a little bit more sophisticated writing. They're going to have a little bit more, the language is going to look a little bit different. But this can be used, I would suggest, in kindergarten first and maybe even second, for it to be a whole class direct and maybe write a story all together. But third through six, it works out wonderfully.
Great. And we'll also mention, we've talked mostly about the storytelling element, but there are a number of technical sections focused on animation and visual design and all of that. And
Yes.
those are actually recommended for fifth grade all the way through high school with some of the
Mhm.
chances to really apply advanced offerings if your students are hungry for that. So
Yeah.
definitely serves a wide range.
Yes, Yes, the I use the animation in my sixth grade class, but some of my kids will come and tell me, "Oh, we've already done this. You know, we did this when I was in fourth grade, or we did this when I was in fifth grade." So it depends on it. The kids really love to just really go in there and try and use it.
Very cool. And then in terms of actually finding it, I'll send out this link again, but it's basically right here in your chat. And if you ever have any trouble hunting it down, just flat out type Pixar into the search box, and there you go. Okay, so next question that was coming in is that unit that you described with storytelling, all the way from coming up with inspiration to building a finished script. How long does that typically take, Laura?
Well, it depends on the group. And I think it's really important to, when the kids are really working hard and they're really, they are so interested in these things, to take as much time as the kids want to take. I typically will do a lesson a day, but there's quite a few times when I'll take like the character development. Sometimes I'll take maybe 2 to 3 days because we really want to get that character really down so we can put him or her into or it into a whole bunch of different situations. So I would typically do it maybe a lesson every 2 days or so. The first couple of lessons are going to take maybe, an hour. But as you work through it and start getting into the meat of it, the acts, the 3 acts, that's going to take a little bit longer, maybe 2 to 3 weeks to get through that. But it's typically we work on trimesters, so typically in a trimester I can have all the lessons finished.
That's great. So it sounds like if a teacher started right now, depending on when their school schedule goes through, they could probably finish it up by the end of the school year, which
Oh,
will
I
kind of be a
think
nice thing to head into the summer with.
yes, I think so.
Great. Um, Now, going back to this sort of mathematical piece that we alluded to, the more technical side of things, can you talk about how that works, what that looks like, how you may incorporate math into some of that?
Well, that's mostly for the ones that are, when you look at the Pixar in the box, when you're looking at, there's with the animation, they are working through math with that in the artistry. So they're just learning how to plot and how to program, how to do the animation, use how they're using the animation. So really in the animation, that's where they're using the math piece there. We don't do it as much, but the kids get right in there. And with the animation, there are so many tutorials in there that actually show them exactly what to do. They plot it out for the kids, and it's so exciting with the one that you're showing around now with the bouncing ball. They get so excited when they get the bouncing ball. But most of the kids will go right in there and plot it themselves.
Very cool. And then just to sort of expand upon what we were talking about before, for each of these more technical sections, there's both an introduction and then a more advanced mathematical section. So if you have fifth graders, you can start with the intro and stop there. If you have
Right.
middle or high schoolers, you can even go all the way to the end.
Exactly.
Great. Um, what do you think about this as a whole course versus a supplement? Maybe it goes back to that elective versus integrated approach.
Well, I have to say that when I did it as an elective, I only had an hour, maybe a couple of days a week, and the kids wanted more, 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 and because they really enjoyed it. They also enjoy watching the Pixar movies and shorts, so everybody wanted to be in that particular elective. But I think that this is such an incredible program, Pixar in the Box, that it helps the students so much with their writing and their writing block. I think it's just I use it in my writing block, and I will continue to use it in my writing block for my whole class from now on, because I just think the quality of their writing that's coming out is fantastic. And then when they write in the scripts, they also start learning about dialogue, and they also start learning about they learn about how to place the action and those sorts of things. And I just like I would recommend doing it as a writing block.
Wonderful. Um, I know folks are asking about Google Classroom, which is something that you mentioned to me before we got started here. What do you recommend there as far as the integration?
Well, I really have to say, Khan Academy has done an amazing, and Pixar together have done an amazing job with creating the Pixar in the box when the lessons. So the lessons are just right there for you. But then what I would do is I would go ahead and create a Google Classroom. And then you can share that with your students, and that gives your students an opportunity to start adding all of the lessons there so you can see all the different things they're doing. I've had quite a few students, what they'll do is they'll take pictures of their character with them side by side, and they'll send that to me. You can have you can separate your Google Classroom into different activities. Start with the storytelling activity 1, 2, 3, 4, and then work it that way. And then you're able to see what the kids are able to create when you're there. And then we also do, our distance learning Zoom meetings, and kids are able to share all of their information that way too. But I think Google Classroom is probably one of the best ways to get some assignments and be able to give your kids some feedback on how well they're doing.
That's great. And so will you do something as simple as take that URL right out of the assignment or the exercise and then paste it into an assignment in Google Classroom?
That's it.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Um, as far as a teacher guide, obviously it's going to feel a little overwhelming at first because it's such a big piece of content.
Uh-huh.
Any sort of resources you found that are useful for like digging in and making those first steps?
Well, again, when you're going to the Pixar in the box, what I would suggest doing is just looking at that educator's guide, and it really will explain a lot of the what's behind Pixar in a box and how the lessons were created, and I would just go through each one of the lessons. And teachers are just amazing kinds of people. They always take things and they do it and make it their own. Some of the things that I have done, I have added a little bit to their learning. So really look at it and try to make it your own. You might see something and go, oh, this is fantastic. That's why I added writing scripts to it. So that I would suggest going through look at that educator's guide, and then I would actually look through each one of the lessons, and they're pretty straightforward because they've done a great job at explaining exactly what they want the student to learn.
That's awesome. Okay, we shared that link there. I know someone else is asking for a link to that script writing extension. We'll put that in as well. Let's see what else here. Um, ooh, can we see a finished product? Well, I don't want
Oh,
to violate any of your students' confidentiality or PII, but can you give folks a sense of like what your sixth graders are coming up with?
well, I've been getting a lot of stories about unicorns and a lot of pictures of unicorns and things like that. I wish I could, I had some of those things, but we left before we got to get a lot of the finished products. But a lot of the students, some of the students will come up with amazing narrative scripts about things that are happening and in their own lives, and I wish I had some to show you, but you're going to be amazed at what you find, what you guys are going to get. Some of the pictures that they draw for me, and then with the characteristics, you have to draw on the outside, the external, and on the inside, the internal. And some of the pictures these guys are sending me, you could tell they really enjoy it.
Oh, that's awesome. And especially right now, I think,
Yes.
like we've been talking about the really tough emotions of this moment. And for a student to have an outlet to share how they're feeling, even
Yeah.
if it's through a fictional script, like it's so powerful to be able to get that out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, as far as the scripting piece, I don't know if you'll be able to speak to this, Laura, but Have you heard of anyone doing something similar on an iPad if they don't have access to Chromebooks? Maybe a scripting app or something like that?
You should be able to, if you go into Chrome and you're opened up, you should be able to access the Yumi script on any device that you have. I haven't had anyone tell me that they haven't been able to access it because it's an actual app that comes from the Chrome web store. So if you
Yeah.
have Chrome, you should be able to have it.
So it looks like the extension is a nice thing if you do have Chromebooks, but even if you just have a web browser like Safari on an iPad, you can still go to
Hmm.
umiscript.com and get started, it looks like.
You should be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Um, Again, sort of the question around isolation versus whole unit. Obviously, there's this huge cornucopia of lessons here. Do you think it's okay just to sort of pick and choose, like, hey, maybe I want to do a little bit of geometry or a little bit of stat, or is it really better to go through that full unit of storytelling?
Well, it's better to go from beginning to end, especially with storytelling. Now, with the animation, you can some of them build upon the other ones, so it's really better to go in the sequence of what how the lessons are provided for you.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think storytelling is such a like additive, cumulative process that you don't want to just dip in and out for that one. Um, what about this question, especially for younger students? So maybe like sixth graders and below. Obviously, anytime you have students who are under 13, there are very specific policies in place when it comes to technology. Do your students actually have Khan Academy logins, or is that actually irrelevant?
Every single one of my kids has Khan Academy login. That's one thing that we have emphasized. It's been incredible to be able to be a Khan Academy ambassador because I've been able to, specifically at my site, be able to show all the teachers how to get on Khan Academy, how to get their classrooms set up, all of that. And so they're able to, every single one of our teachers are able to use Khan Academy, and they all have their own accounts on Khan Academy.
Great. And I'll just mention, like, I think that's probably the best scenario in the sense that that way you can track their progress using Khan Academy reports and things like that.
Mhm.
However, I know these are very different circumstances than we're used to. And so if you're just like, I want to roll this out, but I don't have time for another platform, another set of passwords, like we were just saying a second ago, you can always come over to Google Classroom or whatever your LMS is and just flat out paste the URL in. Anyone can access it even without a login. And then just say,
Right.
hey, send me your finished product. Send me your brainstorm, send me your script, send me whatever. And then your students get all the benefit of all this goodness without having to create another password, another registration process. So just throwing it out there. Um, let's see here. Um, Here's a really interesting question around special education students. So actually, we did a session dedicated to this audience a couple weeks ago, which was one of our most registered sessions ever. And there's a real
Wow.
concern right now that I think every student feels like they're being left behind in some ways, but special education students have unique challenges that we have to solve as educators right now. Do you think that this program could work for that audience and drive that same level of engagement?
Absolutely. I work pretty closely with our special ed team. Their students are, and I'll go back to when I was doing it as an elective. I had some of the kids that were from SPED that came into my classroom, and they were going through all the lessons together with us. But we work closely together, and I absolutely, some of those SPED kids have great imaginations, and I think that they can do it without any problems.
Cool. Yeah, it does feel like this is really tapping something pretty universal in this moment, which is our desire to tell our stories. It doesn't matter where you're coming from or whatever. Like this is a chance to really have that outlet.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, I know we're at the bottom of the hour, and I want to respect your time, Laura, because I know you have your own students to serve. That being said, any final words of wisdom that you want to leave your fellow educators with as they go off on their own journeys?
Um, like I say, Pixar in a box is it's just the art of storytelling, and we are going to create a generations. If we continue to use this, we're going to create a generation of storytellers, which I think is going to be fantastic. And I would just keep plugging away. Like I say, it's very straightforward. It's pretty easy to use, and you just can't imagine the wonderful stories that you're going to get from your kids.
Cool. I think that's what we all need a little bit more of right now. So I thank you for sharing your story, Laura. And then I wish everyone else incredible adventures yet to come and stories yet to be written. And please, 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 wishing you all incredible success on that tough road ahead. Thank you so much, Laura. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, all.